Hey, next up, I want to have Kim Cahill make a quick announcement. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, I just want to give Khalid Samad a little more credit. His organization is Peace in the Hood. And for several decades, Khalid and his group, along with people from Black on Black Crime, show up almost on a weekly basis to killings of young men in the street in gang violence. And very often when police shoot down young men with injustice, we know that story. So that's what Khalid does, dedication for decades. I have felt, I've been privileged to attend some of those things, and as a white person, I have been made to be welcome in that group and accepted, and I think more of us should show up for that. In fact, we have to all show up for each other, because separately in our groups, we're not going to overcome the opposition to people that are oppressing people of color, but ultimately oppressing all of us. So that's what we have to think of, is pulling together, building this movement, and blocking the machine that's killing people internationally and 10 and 15 minutes away from. When you talk about Gaza, an open-air prison, how is that so different than Hunt or Glenville or the near West Side or Kinsman or Mount Pleasant? 10-minute drive from privileged white suburban neighborhoods. Hell is going down, and most of us are not paying attention. So that's our job too, build unity. In a minute you're going to hear about the caravan from Central America, but I want to stress that piece of that, because that didn't get mentioned today. In the early 1980s, I was working at the Catholic Commission and met some of the nuns who had been in El Salvador. They were under death threat. They came home to Cleveland and they were replaced by other nuns, and those were the nuns that were murdered. That's why we still have the Interreligious Task Force for Central America and Colombia now, and you're going to speak to that in a minute. But the caravan is coming, and something was said by Vice President Pence that there were Middle Easterners, that is terrorists, who were hiding in this caravan and trying to get in and threaten Americans, along with the rapists and the murderers and the drug dealers, so-called. What a racist threat, characterizing people from Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, and maybe I don't want to take too much more, but there's such a thing called the School of Americas, where Americans in Georgia trained the death squads that worked in those three countries to destroy those countries. We overthrew the government of Guatemala, which is democratically elected, and that those three countries, and now Nicaragua, not to mention Mexico, there's a lot of economic hell.
Yemen!
Free Yemen!
Thank you. And next I want to introduce Christy Stonebreaker Martinez. She's with the Interreligious Task Force on Central America and Colombia, and she also just returned from a delegation to Iraq.
Hi, yeah, I'm Christy Stonebreaker Martinez. I'm a Colombian person, and I am a U.S. We were founded, the Interreligious Task Force was founded in 1980 when 2 women from Cleveland were murdered and raped in El Salvador, alongside 2 women from New York. Not all of them were nuns, but they were people of faith who cared about solidarity. And to them, solidarity meant sticking through violence and sticking with relationships. Even when the times are tough, even when their privilege would allow them to leave violence, they knew that, and they talked to President Jimmy Carter about the fact that these people, these places that they were living, were being affected by U.S. funding and training. So right now there are folks coming from Central America, as you all know, and they're fleeing political, socio, and economic violence simultaneously. And they're fleeing that violence at the hands of the state, as well as the hands of organized crime, armed actors that are not part of the state. And then sometimes it gets a little contradictory or confusing, like in the case of Nicaragua. There are many people who are violent, and that there are many people who are non-violent who are trying to flee that, who are just civilians caught in the crossfire. So I spent 3 weeks in Iraqi Kurdistan in September, working with our partner Christian Peacemaker Team, ECAP as well, Equipos Cristianos de Acción para Paz. We're partnered with them in Colombia, but also they have teams in Israel, Palestine, and in Iraqi Kurdistan in Lesbos, dealing very frequently with migration issues. So while I was there, I think it's important to remember that these people everywhere who are fleeing violence are human beings and that they have stories. So while I was there, I met with the family of Dunya Rashid, a 19-year-old girl who was a senior in high school or finishing high school, who was harvesting nuts while she was killed by a Turkish bomb in Iraqi Kurdistan, and she was doing that with other young people, and her family very bravely wants people to hear her story. Her name is Dunya Rashid, and Dunya was a person that cared a lot about her education and really wanted, she's a person living on the Iraqi Kurdistan border with Turkey, with Turkish Kurdistan, and was just part of a very small farming community. I have another friend in Iraqi Kurdistan named Regiar. Regiar has gotten this amazing scholarship to attend graduate school in London, but he can't leave Iraqi Kurdistan. He's not been given any visa, though he's been sponsored by this school. I have a third friend. Her name is Runak. Runak is Iranian Kurdish, but has been living in Iraqi Kurdistan for many years because her village is not safe, and so she lives in Suleimania. And now she doesn't have a passport, much like our friends in Palestine and in Gaza. No government will give her a passport or a driver's license anymore once her ID is expired, because as a refugee in Iraqi Kurdistan, she's not actually Iraqi Kurdish, and so she doesn't really belong to either the Iraqi government or the Kurdish regional government, and it's not possible for her to go back home. So these are people, human beings, who just, their lives are halted daily by ridiculous amounts of violence, and the bombings in Iraqi Kurdistan are happening on both the Turkish border and the Iranian border, and they're not being reported on, just like the fact that Yemen, there are 18 clandestine prisons in Yemen, and only the Associated Press has reported on those clandestine prisons twice in the past 2 years that I'm aware of. So this is something that these stories, the people, the relationships that we have to the land, to communities, these are the stories that need to be told from Mexico to Palestine and everywhere in between. And so we'll be going to the U.S.-Mexico border in a couple of weeks, joining with the School of America's Watch Group, and hopefully meeting with some of the caravans. You know, the idea of caravans, it's kind of funny. There is one group of about 5,000 people right now traveling together from Honduras to the U.S.-Mexico border, but the caravans have been happening for years, and so we're hoping to meet. There are multiple caravans happening right now that we're in touch with through Rights Action and some other solidarity groups, and so we're hoping to meet with some of them while we go to the border. But just so you know, that the story of one caravan is not the single story, but there are other people who are refugees all over the world. As you all know, I'm speaking to the choir here, but whose stories will also need to be told after the militarized confrontation that may happen very shortly. So please stay informed, stay in touch. We're so grateful to be in partnership with our family members who care about Gaza and Yemen and Syria and Iran and Iraq and Turkey as well. And so we say, from Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go. From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have
One more
got to
time. From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. The media was invited here 3 times, just to let you know. Channel 35819, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com. I don't see them. They're still trying to ignore the issues that we're here about today, about U.S. war crimes, supplying Israel and Saudi Arabia with weapons of mass destruction to be used on civilians. So the word's gonna get out. All right. I got one announcement from Bill with Say No to Fascism. If you could just bear with me for 1 moment.
Yeah, I wanted to say that we must be in the streets the day after the elections. Wednesday, November 7th here at 4:30 and Saturday at 1 o'clock. In the name of humanity, the Trump-Pence regime must go. Besides that, you guys should get the watch the speech by Bob Avakian, why we need a revolution and how we're going to make one in a country that's so brutal against the people that say anything against it. That's why I think it was 78 journalists have been murdered this past year. You know, and Trump continues to pump out fake news. When people can't even get the news, if you can't get the news, then you can't do much about things. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
I just want to say that I recognize some of the Zionists that are recording this, and let me tell you, we don't give a shit, okay? So just so you know, you could put your cool shades on and stuff like that. I recognize who you are. I've been coming to rallies for 20 years, and you know who you are. And here's the middle finger to your camera. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
Long live Palestine!
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 From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
I hope your camera got that, sir. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
End the occupation now!
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 Down, down with Israel!
Down, down with Israel!
Down, down with Israel!
Down, down with Israel!
Down, down with Zionism!
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 From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Free Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
I want to remind you guys that not only in Cleveland, but March 24th, 2019, Al-Auda, with its allies, will be hosting the annual International Anti-AIPAC. The Israeli lobby in Washington, D.C. we will be holding the rally March 24th. So mark your calendars. That will be in front of the White House. And then we march down to the convention center. So please keep the date. And the Zionists, make sure you go back to Washington and let them know we're coming right to your doorstep so you don't have to come to Cleveland.